Hey BoLS fans, AdamHarry back again with another BoLS Tabletop Ready Tips for the rest of us, where I go through some basic tips to help us all get their stuff tabletop ready. So this is a basic tutorial. Today I wanted to cover something that I think is a bit of a dying art, and that is the art of working with metal models. So I have a bunch of Eldorado, really cool Saracen stuff I picked up. These are all metal, the entire faction's metal. This is from Cypher Studios. Eldorado is a really fun game, but that's not what I'm talking about. I want to focus on working with metal. If you've been in the hobby for a long time, this is not geared towards you, obviously. This is for a lot of the new guys coming in who maybe just started modeling and getting into the hobby part of building and painting with metal. So I wanted to talk specifically about working with this stuff, and this is a really great example. A lot of stuff's moving to plastic and resin and PVC, and those are actually going to be part of this series where I talk about each one of those materials and working with those and some of the pitfalls and some of the cool things you can do with all of those things. But first off, it's metal, right? So as you can see here, most of these are, I've got a lot of different types. A lot of these are single pose metal models, so no shocker there. So for instance, working with these Saracens, this is mostly a solid figure, right? Not a big deal. We're gonna be gluing a little bit to him, but we have some stuff to clip and clean. And I'm gonna go over the whole assembly part in working with metal on this part. So on this first section. So let's talk about the tools you're gonna need. So first off, invest in a hobby cutting board thing. These are one of those, it's a self-healing whatever cutting mat, but basically you can cut it and it doesn't really cut through. So good plastic there. Obviously you're going to want a good X-Acto knife with the sharp blade. I get one with interchangeable blades, which you can actually buy the little reloads for. So me personally, they're pretty cheap to come by, but you want to make sure the handle's nice. There's some with better rubberized grips. I actually have a different model here. I've used several different over the time, but some of them have rubberized grips. Sometimes I have, whatever you want to work with. So good hobby knife. You're gonna want a good set of clippers. You make sure, man. When I was first starting out, I used fingernail clippers all the time. You want to make sure that you are getting a good set of clippers, preferably one with a spring loaded, so it gives a little pushback when you squeeze. But the big key thing is you want to make sure one side is nice and flat, and I'll show you why here in a second, versus both sides. But you want to make sure it's nice and flat on one side. So nice rubber grips are a nice plus too. When working with metal, you cannot use model plastic glue, and I'll go over this more when I do the working with plastic part. But working with metal, it doesn't bond because plastic glue actually melts the plastic and fuses it and kind of welds it together, whereas you need super glue or some metal to plastic glue. I use some GF9 hobby glue, which I picked up. It's pretty cheap. It's basically an old formula, but this works on both plastic and metal models, so it's kind of your good all-around multi-purpose stuff. I also like to use some zip kicker, which I picked up for $4.99, as you can see there, from a local hobby store. This is but you can also get refills for this stuff too. So, but it's instant set. It smells kind of funny. Try to use it in a semi-well ventilated area. You don't want to be huffing that stuff. But what that does is it helps the glue set and harden a lot faster. Note on that, I don't have any scientific data to back this up, just anecdata, I like to call it. But when you use super glue and don't let it set naturally, and you use some zip kicker, the bond, I have heard and have witnessed, is actually slightly weaker than when you just let it set naturally. So you have to be a little bit more careful with your models, but it's kind of your choice. It's not so much weaker that it's not usable, so whatever. So that's how I roll. So yeah, what I want to do is put together some models for you guys real fast. I'll start with this guy. First off, when you're building your stuff, make sure you get all the bits. Oh, here, how about we start with this guy? So let me just lay out all the bits real fast. Got some swords and axes, shields and swords and stuff. A couple of different Saracen trooper guys, and kind of the big blades. So, and then of course the bases and that. Oh, a couple other tools I'm working with here. Obviously I've got my painting board and I've got a the cutting board. I also keep a rag around just when I'm spraying the zip kicker. It kind of helps. So something else to keep in mind. One more very important tool I forgot about was actually an old gnarly toothbrush. If you got an old leftover toothbrush, if you want to just use this, it helps just kind of make sure the model's clean. That comes in handy. So get one of those. So I'll start with this guy here in the middle. This is a single piece model, so a lot of old metal models, or some of the new ones actually, will come as single pieces. You kind of, first thing you want to do whenever you're assembling metal is just make sure that they're going to have little bits of flash and stuff like that, like this little wire or whatever. It's part of the casting process. It's excess. Just want to make sure that's, you can break that off or clip it off actually, whatever, just to make sure you get a nice clean cut. So if you're using clippers, one of the things that you can do to make sure you get a nice smooth cut is to, when you clip, if you get a little burr there, you want to make sure that you're using the flat side on the part of the model that you want to save, and the part that you want to discard has got the wedge here. So as you can see that. So the flat side is for the clean side. That's going to give you the nice clean cut. So you just want to kind of put it against the model, the flat side, boom, and then kind of do that. So let me show you a better example here. This guy, he's got a little doodad there in the middle that we need to clean off. So flat side again on the model part that we want to save. And the reason for this is with these clippers, they're actually going to be bending. So you're going to get a cut, but because it's metal, it's going to help. It's going to actually bend, which is one of the benefits of working with metal, is that it bends a lot easier. Well, maybe not easier, but it bends versus breaks. So again, flat side on the model, and that should help ensure you get a nice clean cut. So I'm going to spend the next couple seconds just or going through the rest of these and cleaning them all up. So alright, now that I've used the clippers, I'm going to go in with a hobby knife here and just kind of clean up some of the edges. This process is pretty straightforward. I just want to make sure that any of those little burrs that might have popped up are gone. If you notice too, I'm just using a technique called scraping. That's what I call it anyway. You just run the side of the blade across something. This is not smart, by the way, what I'm doing right here. This is actually trimming some of the modeling off. You want to be super slow and careful with this step right here. You should be cutting away from yourself, but I'm not doing that. Why? Because I've been doing this for a long time. I've cut my thumb several times doing this. I just nicked it, but you want to go super slow. I've got a lot of experience doing this, cleaning models and stuff like that, but if you want to be safe about it, you should do it this way. I just don't have that much control, and I know well enough to go slow when I do this, so I'm just going nice and easy. I'm not forcing the blade. I'm not trying to pull it too far. If I get hung up on something, I'll stop and just kind of shave very slowly, very, very carefully. You don't want to force it. You do not want to pull it hard, because that is how you slice your thumb open, like I said, which I've done several times. So yeah, learn from mistakes. So, and get lots of practice.
Okay, in this section I'm actually cleaning off another part of the big guy there. I'm actually clipping and cleaning really close to the sword hilt, so I want to make sure I get a nice clean cut. What I'm doing with my hand and with the rag over top was when I was clipping, I wanted to make sure that bits didn't go flying off in all the different directions and shoot me in the face or anything. So after that, I've just cleaned up the bit as close as I need to, so I get a nice snug fit and it's nice and clean. Now I'm going to be gluing the model together. So I've got the two bits all clipped and cleaned. What I'm doing is actually dry fitting. Always dry fit when working with metal to make sure that it fits where it needs to go. I'm spraying the part that I'm attaching the bit to, and I'm applying just a dab of glue to the tip there, and then making sure it snugly fits, giving it a quick blow on just to make sure that it's solid. And there you go, solid as a rock.
Okay, so I kind of cut to put together the models, got most of them built. I came across one thing I wanted to point out here real fast. Occasionally when working with metal, you'll find two roughly smooth edges to work on. So for instance, this one here, this edge is smooth and it's going to be glued to this edge, which is also smooth. What I find helps out a lot with super glue when working with metal is to actually go in and just score up the two connecting smooth edges just a little bit, so that there's basically trenches for the glue to go to kind of get in there and help seal everything together. So just gonna score the edges real quick. What I like to do is do a couple of quick scratches along the surface one way, and then I'll do that. So I've got cuts that way, perpendicular to the cuts I was doing before. So do the same thing on this one. Just gonna score it like that, and same deal. So there you go. And then apply the glue, and yeah, I had to pause to put this stuff together. To be quite frank, the camera was just in my way, and these bits are very fiddly, so I had to kind of get in there. So back at it.
Now that the models are assembled, I am dry fitting on the bases to make sure they fit. I'm just making sure that that's the right base for that big model, and it is. So, and I'm dry fitting some other ones. I noticed there's a little bit more flash that I need to trim off on that one, so I'll get to work on that. At this point, I'm now going to connect the metal to plastic. So I want to make sure that where there's touching, there's going to be a little bit of scorage for the glue to fit. So I'm just going to put a big dab of glue on that model, spray the base, and attach it.
So
there you have it.
that's pretty much it. I've glued all of them down to their bases. Some of them, the slot was so tight that I didn't really need to add glue, but it just kind of depends. But yeah, I hope this tutorial has been helpful. This really quick primer on working with metal. Don't be afraid of this stuff. Be careful, obviously, when dealing with sharp objects. Work in a well-ventilated area with the glue and the spray kicker stuff, zip kicker. But yeah, it's not bad. I've been doing it for years, and yeah, it's just part of the hobby. And a lot of companies still use metal. Some of the smaller guys still use it. It holds the detail really well, and stuff looks really cool. So poses are a little static, so it's going to cut down on your conversion options, but you can get, again, the kind of super glue stuff that works on plastic and metal works with that stuff, so you can make your own stuff up. But anyway, again, I hope this has been helpful. This is the first in the series of working with materials, specific materials, in this case metal. So come back next time for another one, another resin, plastic, or PVC. I'm not really sure which one I'm doing next, but I will let you guys, well, you'll find out. Anyway, AdamHarry from BoLS signing off, and have a good one. No.